Black astronauts have been reaching for the stars for decades, but their stories are often left out of history books. From overcoming racial barriers to leading groundbreaking space missions, Black pioneers have shaped space exploration in ways most people don't even realize. Let's dive into the entire history of Black astronauts, from the first space pioneers to the future of Mars exploration. Segment 1. The first Black astronauts and space race barriers. Show footage of early NASA programs and civil rights protests of the 1960s. Narrator. When NASA first started in the 1950s, becoming an astronaut wasn't even an option for Black Americans. Segregation and racism kept many brilliant Black scientists and pilots from joining the space program. But behind the scenes, Black mathematicians like Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, whose work was highlighted in Hidden Figures, were making space travel possible, calculating launch trajectories for astronauts like John Glenn. And while white astronauts were heading to space, the first Black astronaut candidates had to fight just to get into the program. Segment 2. Guion Bluford, the first Black astronaut in space. Show images and video of Guion Bluford's 1983 space mission. Narrator. That all changed in 1983 when Guy Bluford made history as the first Black astronaut to go to space. A former Air Force pilot with a PhD in aerospace engineering, Bluford joined NASA in 1979 and flew aboard the Challenger shuttle on the STS-8 mission. He called it an awesome experience, but his mission wasn't just about space. He shattered a racial barrier that had stood for decades. Segment 3. Mae Jemison, the first Black woman in space. Show Mae Jemison in her orange NASA flight suit and clips from her space mission. Narrator. Then in 1992, Mae Jemison made history as the first Black woman to go to space. A medical doctor, engineer, and former Peace Corps volunteer, Jemison wasn't just an astronaut. She was a symbol of limitless possibilities for Black women in STEM. She flew aboard the Endeavour shuttle and later used her experience to inspire future scientists, even making a guest appearance on Star Trek, a show that inspired her to dream of space as a child. Segment 4. NASA's hidden Black engineers and mathematicians. Show images of Black engineers working in NASA's control rooms and Apollo-era footage. Narrator. But let's not forget, Black astronauts weren't alone in breaking barriers. For every mission, there were hundreds of Black engineers, scientists, and mathematicians working behind the scenes. People like Ed Dwight, who was selected as the first Black astronaut candidate in the 1960s, but never got to fly due to racial politics. And Katherine Johnson, who calculated the flight path for Apollo 11's moon landing, proving that Black excellence was essential to space exploration. Segment 5. Modern Black astronauts and future Mars missions. Show modern Black astronauts training and the Artemis program's Mars mission concepts. Narrator. Today, Black astronauts are leading the next generation of space exploration. Victor Glover piloted the SpaceX Crew, one mission in 2020, becoming the first Black astronaut to live on the International Space Station for an extended stay. And Jeanette Epps is set to fly on the Boeing Starliner, making her one of the few Black women assigned to long-duration space missions. But the most exciting part? Black astronauts are now in training for future Moon and Mars missions. The Artemis program aims to land the first woman and person of color on the Moon by 2025, opening the door for Black space explorers to go further than ever before. Closing scene, call to action. Show a montage of Black astronauts in action, from Bluford to today's NASA missions. Narrator. The history of Black astronauts is still being written. From Guion Bluford's first flight to the next generation of Mars explorers, Black pioneers have shown that the sky isn't the limit, it's just the beginning. So tell us, who's your favorite Black astronaut, or which mission are you most excited about? Drop a comment below. Musical notes, outro music, uplifting space-themed score. And don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe, and keep reaching for the stars.